Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to English Story Time with Mark. I'm your host, Mark. Today we're going to be reading the short story The Log by Guy De Maupassant. Pierre Lemaitre sat in his warm living room staring into the fireplace. The flames danced, licking at the wooden logs, crackling softly. His wife, Louise, sat in her chair beside him, knitting quietly. Outside, the wind howled and the windows rattled from the force of the winter storm. It was a perfect evening, a peaceful, ordinary night at home. And yet, Pierre felt uneasy. His heart was still beating too fast. His thoughts were tangled, heavy with guilt. That afternoon, he had almost done something unforgivable. Pierre had spent the day in town, finishing some business. On his way home, he decided to visit his old friend Jacques Deroy. They had been friends since childhood, inseparable for years. Jacques was a man of great kindness, always generous, always loyal. But Jacques had been away for a week on business, leaving his wife Madeleine home alone. Pierre had known Madeleine for years, long before she married Jacques. She was beautiful, elegant, and full of life. Though Pierre had never thought of her romantically before, something about that day felt different. When he arrived, Madeleine greeted him warmly. "Pierre, what a nice surprise. Come in, come in. It's so cold outside." She led him into the sitting room, where a fire was burning brightly in the fireplace. The house felt warm and welcoming, but Pierre immediately sensed something unusual in the air. Maybe it was the way Madeleine looked at him, her eyes soft, her smile a little too inviting. They sat down, talking easily, laughing about small things. At first, everything felt normal, but slowly the conversation grew more personal, more intimate. She asked him about his wife, about his marriage. She leaned in a little closer when she spoke. Her perfume was light but intoxicating. Then suddenly, there was a silence between them, a charged, expectant silence. Pierre felt his heart pounding. He knew this moment was dangerous, yet he didn't move away. Madeleine's eyes held his, questioning, waiting. She didn't look away. And then, before he could think, before he could stop himself, he found himself leaning toward her. She didn't move. She didn't pull back. Their faces were close, so close. Pierre could feel the warmth of her breath. He could see every delicate feature of her face. The moment stretched, fragile, dangerous. And then, a loud noise shattered the silence. A log rolled out of the fireplace, hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Sparks flew in every direction. A sudden burst of heat filled the room. Madeleine gasped and jumped back. Pierre flinched. The spell was broken. For a second, neither of them moved. The moment was gone, lost forever. Madeleine laughed nervously. "Oh, that scared me." Pierre stood up quickly. I should go." She didn't stop him. She only nodded, smoothing her dress, looking away. Pierre grabbed his coat and hurried out the door, barely saying goodbye. The cold air hit him like a slap to the face. He took deep breaths, walking fast, trying to calm himself. He had almost betrayed his best friend. He had almost done something terrible, and all because of a single moment of weakness. Now, sitting in his own home watching the fire, Pierre felt ashamed. Louise was still knitting, her hands moving gracefully, the needles clicking together softly. She looked so peaceful, so content. She trusted him completely. And he had almost thrown it all away. His fingers curled into a fist. What had he been thinking? Was it just excitement? Was it boredom? He had a good life, a good marriage. Why had he been tempted? He stared into the fire, watching the flames wrap around the logs. He thought of the log that had saved him, the one that had fallen at just the right moment. If it hadn't rolled out of the fireplace, what would have happened? Would he have kissed Madeline? Would they have gone further? Would he have destroyed everything? The thought made him shudder. A log, just a simple log. It had saved him from himself. Pierre took a deep breath and leaned back in his chair. He needed to forget about today. He needed to let it go. He hadn't done anything wrong. Not really. But he had almost done something, and that was enough to shake him to his core. From now on, he would be careful. He would not allow himself to fall into temptation again. He would be the man he wanted to be, the man his wife believed him to be. Louise looked up from her knitting and smiled at him. You seem deep in thought, she said. Is everything all right? Pierre returned her smile, forcing himself to relax. Yes, he said, everything is just fine. She nodded and went back to her knitting, unaware of the quiet battle that had taken place inside her husband's heart. Pierre watched the fire burn, feeling strangely grateful for the small piece of wood that had saved him. Outside, the winter wind howled, but inside, the fire burned steadily, warm and strong. The end. So a story about temptation and fate and how we can be tempted in moments of weakness. But it sounds like our narrator didn't. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story and it will inspire you to read this or any other of the stories that we cover on the channel. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you next time.